Now, President-elect Donald Trump has repeatedly professed a desire to work with Russia and has even expressed some level of admiration for Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Trump isn't running Washington just yet. On Tuesday, the U.S. Treasury Department announced new sanctions on specific Russian individuals and companies on top of the ones it imposed over 2 years ago in retaliation for Moscow's intervention in Ukraine. Kim Jung-soo has more.
The U.S. Treasury Department on Tuesday local time announced new sanctions on 7 Russian individuals, 8 corporate entities, 2 tanker vessels, as well as more than 24 subsidiaries owned by the Russian Agricultural Bank and the country's biggest independent natural gas producer, Novatek. Reuters called the sanctions, quote, relatively narrow in scope. They prohibit U.S. citizens from buying debt from the blacklisted companies. The acting director of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, John E. Smith, explained that the sanctions come in response to Russia's, quote, unlawful occupation of Crimea and continued aggression in Ukraine. In response to the latest measures, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said Russia, quote, retains the right to choose the time, place, and form of its responsive actions in a way that suits them. U.S. State Department spokesman John Kirby, meanwhile, said the Obama administration hopes the incoming Trump administration will keep the existing sanctions.
We would hope that they would see the wisdom in keeping these sanctions and this pressure on Russia, because we have seen it have an effect.
But some experts say that's quite improbable. Rather, they believe the incoming Trump administration will strengthen its ties with Russia to contain China's influence.
I don't think the sanctions imposed by the Treasury will last too long. Trump can't do much about the ones passed through Congress, but I believe he will enhance relations with Russia to limit China's growth. I think this puts Korea in a very difficult spot as well, forcing it to really think carefully about whether to side with China or the U.S.
The added sanctions come amid news on Wednesday that the incoming Trump administration apparently does not consider Russia America's top security threat. A leaked memo from Trump's transition team to the Pentagon noticeably left out the country that the current Pentagon leadership has labeled as the #1 threat to the U.S. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.